What do people get wrong about your job role?
I read 99% of our stories on the website or in the newsletter.
So you're a consumer?
So I'm a consumer.
How do you reconcile wanting to actually be a solid journalistic platform with not wanting to paint a bad or negative picture of the ecosystem?
It is the most difficult part of my job.
This is the Wimbart Way. Tomiwa, thank you so much for joining me on the Wimbart Way. It's an extraordinarily busy week because we are just about to kick off Moonshot.
Yep.
I say we like I've done anything. I'm going to take the glory.
You've been here for it.
I've been here for it. This is my third year.
Third one, yes.
Thank you also for hosting events in October when it's freezing cold in England.
You know, I try. I'm really considerate of all my constituencies.
But thank you so much for joining us on the Wimbart Way. You have been at Big Cabal Media since 2018.
Yep.
So a while. So I'm old enough to remember the days of Bankole and Shay.
Yep.
And brilliant characters, and what they did for reporting in the tech ecosystem is incredible.
Yep.
But they obviously came to a point where they just couldn't take the brand, the platform any further. Can you just describe to us like how you started that conversation with them? What compelled you to take over TechCabal?
So I was at an agency, and my partners and I were shutting it down. We had a good run, and we just decided that was over. So I was looking for what to do next, and someone mentioned I should go speak to Shay, that they were looking for some help. So finishing the agency, it was like, am I going to go back, start my own thing and be an entrepreneur? Or am I going to get a job somewhere? And so I was interviewing and having conversations. And she said to come and help them with biz dev. And I said, nope, y'all can't afford me because I just got married. Yeah, I just got married. So it's like,
bills to pay?
Oh, yeah, bills to pay. And then somewhere along, we just kind of kept having a conversation. I liked the brands.
Yeah.
I thought the brands were interesting. And somewhere along the way, he said, do you want to come run it? And then it became interesting because I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And here was this opportunity to take, and for the audience, a couple of incredible brands. So Big Cabal Media, the parent company, and we had TechCabal and then Zikoko, which is a youth publication. And I thought, there's something really interesting here. I like these two brands. At Venture, the agency I was shutting down, our biggest client was Guardian Nigeria.
Right.
And so we just spent kind of 2 years helping Guardian build out their digital strategy, build their websites, do monetization. So I just kind of come off essentially a 2-year boot camp in digital publishing. And then here was a digital publishing opportunity where I got to run the shop and have final say on everything. And that was really interesting. So I interviewed with Jumia, I interviewed with, I think I was speaking to Andela. There was a couple of meetings I didn't even take because somewhere in there I kind of decided this was the exciting thing. And I didn't know if it was going to work. Mm-hmm. My wife kind of gave me somewhere between 6 months and a year. I think 6 months to start paying myself and a year to try out this experiment. And if it didn't work, then I'd shut it down and go get a job.
And I saw your wife the other day, so you guys are still together.
We're still together, yes. So this did not cost me my marriage. Incredible well of support. I think I hit whatever the timeline was to start paying myself a salary. I just about hit it. Didn't pay myself very much.
Mm-hmm. We've all been there.
For at least 3 years, it was just pitiful. But it did give me some urgency. We need to start making money. We need to start paying people. It gives you a sense of responsibility about the whole thing. And I think we figured out enough that I was still going at the end of the year. It probably a few years before I knew it was the right thing to do.
So it was a leap of faith.
Definitely huge.
And so what was it then about TechCabal, about Shay and Bankole and what they built that really helped you make that final decision?
So TechCabal, kind of an ambition, was always going to be Pan-African tech publication. There's a lot of stuff. 2018, there was this excitement about the tech ecosystem and what was possible. And TechCabal, I thought, was had a really interesting voice and a really interesting approach to covering it. They had the TC Daily, the daily newsletter, they had the website, and I thought there was enough there. I liked the other publications, Zikoko, I loved the energy of it. Yeah. And so between the two of them, I just thought we could build something interesting here. A lot of people did love Big Cabal. They liked the brands, they liked the energy and the voice of the company. And I thought we could take that love and then pair it with like operational expertise and a bit kind of a business sharpness, which was what I was supposed to bring to the table, and do something special.
And that founder mentality is exceptional and special because I think you are now synonymous with Big Cabal Media,
Yeah.
like Shei and Bankole were. And I would think that a lot of new entrants into the market would assume that you are the founder.
I mean, I've had this conversation this weekend where somebody, yeah, you're the founder, right? I'm like, no, I'm not the founder. But I've been there almost 8 years, which is twice as long as Shei was there. I think Bankole maybe has spent 6 years, but yes, it's been so long that yeah, it is. And we've grown significantly. I think they gave me great bones, but we have done an incredible amount of work to actually grow the business and the properties and to develop them. And so yeah, something like Moonshot, which is sort of like our biggest flagship event, is an idea that's 3 years old now. There are people who only know TechCabal from Moonshot, and so, or from Moonshot. And so, yeah, their conception of what this business is and who's involved in it definitely doesn't stretch as far back as then. Yeah.
So then as a commercial entity, I think especially over the last few years, it's clear that the publishing world around the globe has suffered massively.
It's been tough.
It's been tough. There have been challenges. So how then do you build a commercial model around that brand? Is it Moonshot? I know you obviously have TC Data and Insights as well. We think of you as a publisher, but you're so much more than that. You have to sort of be a multi-entrepreneur.
So you talked about founder mentality, and I think that there is definitely a Silicon Valley aphorism or reference that I do like to give, which is like you keep having to go back to first principles. And I think on the founder mentality perspective is that you're just constantly experimenting. So yeah, borrow from Amazon again, just the constant experimentation. When I joined in 2018, the big revenue models, it was advertising, it was subscriptions. Subscriptions hadn't really become the apple of everyone's eye the way it is today, but it was still a thing that people were experimenting with and considering. And then it was studios, creative studios,
Yeah.
New York Times, T Studio, and da, 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 da. And so we started, Cabal Creative, which is our studio arm. And so like that was, we were sure it was going to be advertising and it was going to be our creative studio. And we did a lot of work. And Pulse, which is in our market, also essentially still has a big, essentially ad agency within their business. And so we attempted that, and we've done brand work, we've done video content, we've done all kinds of stuff in there. Ultimately, that didn't work as well as we hoped that it would. We hated pitching, constant pitching. And so we've experimented with a bunch of different things. I think today, how do we make money? Advertising is a really big part of it. TechCabal Insights, our research and data arm, is a big, and we do a lot of consulting work within that. And then events have obviously become a really big part of our revenue mix. And so TechCabal, has Moonshot on its side. Zikoko has Narrow Life event, or Hertitude, and All Women's Festival. And so it's been a series of experimentation and iteration and dropping things that don't work, and then sometimes trying things over and over again to make sure, it wasn't just operational failure the first time. There might actually be something in this idea, so we're going to go back and see if we do it better. Will it actually deliver some results? And so, yeah, it's been interesting.
And how easy was it to take people on the journey for, say, Moonshots? So you raised in 2022,
yeah,
2.3 million,
yep,
which is extraordinarily tidy sum for a
media business in this part of the world. Yes.
So you must be fantastic at pitching.
Okay. All right. Decent.
But how do you then take what's the conversation you have with those investors? Like how do you communicate that vision to what you want to do as a brand, as the events, like bring them along on the journey?
One, we've been extraordinarily lucky with the investors that we have. They've been quite patient with our journey. Again, we raised in 2022, the height of the heady days, and so everyone was going to, become a unicorn, and so media businesses, the VC model is tough for media businesses. And so one, it took a lot of faith to actually invest in us in the first instance. And then two, it's required a lot of patience because while we've grown quite steadily from a revenue basis as a business, we're not a fintech. And like, I will not pretend that, we have fintech numbers to show. And so I think what's really critical is that your investors can see what you're trying, that what you're trying makes some sense, and they can see what's working. And so Moonshot, for instance, as an event, follows on the back of years of experimentation with other kinds of events.
Yeah.
So before it, we had a conference called the Future of Commerce, which we've done 2 years in a row. Decent little conference, but it was internally obvious to us that the name The Future of Commerce was boxing us into a tiny corner. It's a bit of a geeky name. Two, it immediately says everything here is fintech and payments and logistics and nothing more. And so it was clear. And so when we said, look, we're thinking about broadening this, board investors were like, well, let's see. I think also a really important thing in terms of just managing investors and bringing them along the journey is that clarity of communication, frequency of communication. I think now for our angel investors, people who've been with us for a while, we do like a quarterly report. But when I joined Big Cabal, I did a monthly report, like clockwork, details. This is what we're trying. This is what's working. This is what's not working. You have to be as forthright about what's not working as you are about what is working, because I think what a lot of founders do is when things stop working, they disappear.
Yeah.
If you're doing the work, you tell them every month, hey, I tried this thing. It didn't work. I'm sorry. Now here's what we're going to try next.
So that transparency is really important.
It's essential. Absolutely essential. And that's what gives them trust. So like, again, Zikoko did a big event called Z-Fest. We thought that was going to be next Coachella. It was not the next Coachella. We've done a barbecue festival called Burning Ram.
What? I love that.
A barbecue festival called Burning Ram because we thought we were clever. Really cool event. Didn't quite work in terms of the commercial aspirations that we had for it.
Yeah. How do you successfully manage relationships between investors, advertisers, and then on the flip side, how you report on them?
It is the most difficult part of my job. I try not to be, and for the most part, I'm not involved in the day-to-day editorial work at all. I read 99% of our stories on the website or on the newsletter the same way as I'm a consumer, and which is great. Like, because as a publisher, you want to be a fan of your publication first. And so I read it and I go, man, you guys are kicking ass and doing really great work. Managing the relationships is very difficult. One, because a lot of people don't believe the words I just said about
that was
the fact that I'm not.
Like, what do people get wrong about your job role?
So a lot of people think, like, why did you write that story about me? I'm like, I did not write that story about you. The newsroom did. And I'm happy to connect you with the editor-in-chief so that you and him or her, whoever it is at that time, can have a conversation about it, because actually I'm not involved. Now that is nice to say, but a lot of the work is just, first of all, talking people off the ledge. So the first thing is talk them off the ledge, because they want to find out our office and they want to meet that reporter or that editor. And then after you talk them off the ledge, you got to explain what the issue is.
Yeah.
And when can we make a correction? When can we, because we can't always make a correction. Sometimes if you don't have the data, then we're going to rely on the data that we have. Yeah, the story stands as is. When are we going to take a story down? Just about never. Like, we would have to have gotten 90% of the story factually wrong, or a significant amount of the story factually wrong for us to pull it down. So that's almost never ever going to happen. And so you got to explain that to people and then manage their unhappiness. And a lot of the time it's just an unhappiness management exercise, because there's nothing to be done.
I think because it's still quite unknown, there's probably quite a lot of education to be done around how journalism works, how PR works, how communications work. We've actually been on webinars for early stage startups, Wimbart Office Hours many years ago, where we brought you on board to actually explain to people, A, what your job is and isn't, but also how the media works.
Yep.
Not so much anymore, but early days of Wimbart, we'd write a press release and we sell it into TechCabal, and your journalists would write the story around it. And then the founder would be pissed because it wasn't just a press release.
Yes. And you're like,
You're like,
no.
but that's better because this is context. This is
Yeah.
earned media. This is, additional sources
And
and
you know,
things like that.
we offer a service. I mean, it's not one of my favorite ones, but where if you want to just publish a press release,
Yeah.
we have a press room. You could just publish a press release.
I'm going to ask something maybe a little bit provocative here, but I think TechCabal has massively improved the level of journalism over the last few years in terms of the deep dives, in terms of the analysis and some of the questions that you ask, which are often quite difficult questions. How do you feel then when people actually don't like the fact that you're asking the difficult questions? Like, how do you reconcile wanting to actually be a solid journalistic platform with not wanting to, I guess, paint a bad or negative picture of the ecosystem by highlighting some of the bad players?
I think the work's the work. And I think good journalism requires asking hard questions. I understand the discomfort, and building is hard.
Yeah.
I will give this to founders. They are attempting, and founders and builders, and like I say that because like I'm not a founder. They are attempting to build incredible businesses in an difficult environment. They have regulators waiting to pounce. They have a market that's unforgiving. They have
Devaluation of the naira.
Yeah, devaluation of the naira, a tough macro environment. So I can understand their sensitivity around, like, why do you want to dive into the insides of my business model and expose them? On the other hand, I mean, like, and I will speak to somebody that, like, has been your friend and client, reading about Jason Njoku's journey with Iroko has been incredibly valuable for me as a business leader. And I think every business leader finds value in reading about, well, what are the challenges of other people are having, and sometimes so that you can avoid those same challenges or so that you can learn how they overcame them. Investors want to know that if there are bad players in your market, somebody's going to write about them so that they have a sense. And I mean, like, I've gotten panicked calls. I get a few kinds of panicked calls. You get the panicked call of, why have you written about our company? Like, like all our dirt's out in the open. Sometimes is I need to know more about this because I need to know what my portfolio companies need to be doing. Founders are always incredibly eager to read about the stories of other companies and what's happening with them and how they're dealing with regulators, nobody wants it to be the story about them when they're in trouble, or everybody wants a glowing review or glowing. And so we know the work is important. We know the work is valuable. We get tons and tons of feedback from investors, from regulators, from the business leaders themselves. Very, very importantly, from customers.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we ask the hard questions because customers are spamming our emails and our social channels about issues with this company or their money being trapped here or whatever it is. So like the prompt for us to do some of our work comes from customers or concerned employees or any of that. How do we balance it? It's critical to paint a clear and holistic picture of the ecosystem. And so it's important to always highlight the people who are doing great work.
So going back to the commercial side of the business, just writing or fundraise announcement stories, that's not going to be, that's not hugely inspiring.
It's not. And also we've kind of, we've come out of the period of, a seed, $1 million seed raise every day, so if we were just writing that, there wouldn't be very much content anyway. Yeah.
Exactly that. So you've narrowed down on some of the sort of themes and narratives that are really shaping the ecosystem as well. How do you then hear about a big story that might be happening and then you think this is going to be a money spinner for us or this is going to drive more traffic? Like, do you think like that when you've got a big story, or it's more you keep them very separate?
No, we do, like, these are important stories. And so if you find a big story, it's a big story. And it's not a big story because it's going to like lead to big views. It's a big story because this is an important story. And like sometimes reporters will chase a really big story for 6 months.
Yeah.
Sometimes we've got to get it out because actually this thing is time bound, and by the way, we write a lot of very important stories that do no numbers because they're not that sexy. We have stuff that goes viral in very, very small communities.
Okay.
So sometimes you will write something and it's like, every investor is going to call us. Every investor that thinks deeply about this space is going to call us and say that was an important piece. We're always trying to be balanced in our coverage. We are interested in startups, we're interested in enterprise, we're interested in regulation, we're interested in the players. Yeah, there definitely is some obsessing about the numbers, but I think that's a holistic play. It's just, what categories do we need to do more of? Because, yeah, they tend to perform better. But I don't think we're ever chasing any one story because this one story is going to be the one that like kind of saves the week or kind of like does all the numbers. We're just like, this is a meaningful story. We should cover it. We should cover it well.
Okay. And then just to sort of round up our discussions, how do you see the next, I guess, year, 2, 3 years playing out when it comes to building a business around a multi-vertical publishing company such as Big Cabal Media? As in, you mentioned that you've developed a number of verticals. You're developing content from across the continent. Like you've had people in South Africa, you have people in Kenya reporting. I've seen way more Kenya coverage recently as well.
Go Kenya team.
But how tricky is that to become, from a sort of primarily a Nigerian brand to then building a Pan-African media brand?
So we've tried to take it step by step. I think we put one reporter in Nairobi, then put one reporter in Kenya, in Johannesburg. We've got 2 reporters in Nairobi right now. So continue to grow the footprint. I'll give you a scoop. So Q1 next year, we should launch TechCabal.fr. And that's basically just a French version of the website.
Amazing.
The same content that we have right now, but a reporter or 2 kind of covering the Francophone market. We launched a Francophone newsletter last quarter, I believe, and that's kind of picking up the next wave with Lena Cassium, kind of doing that. And so like Francophone Africa is next in terms of like covering it. And I think that how are we doing it from Lagos? It's when we started out, 99% of our team, maybe 100% of our team lived in Lagos and worked out of Lagos. COVID came and people scattered all over the world. And now we've essentially started to build footprints in the places that we want to cover.
So is that what marks out TechCabal in terms of you actually have the editorial side of things, but it's your ongoing business acumen that is really powering and enabling you to...
Absolutely. So, I think one of the things that the media business struggles is, and I have found that actually various business verticals struggle with this, is that a journalist goes and starts a publication, and you could be a Pulitzer-winning journalist. If you're a bad business person, you're not going to succeed. And so we've outlasted some of our competition. I think we've built a business that is growing in a very difficult industry. And I think we've done that by really prioritizing business experimentation. In terms of our internal values, number one, editorial is first. Like editorial excellence is number one. And every year, everybody in the business knows that. Number 2 is be relentlessly commercial. And and so everybody in the business knows ultimately we exist to tell stories and tell them well. Well, in order to do that, we have to be about the business. We have to be making money. We have to be thoughtful about how we make money. We have to be aggressive about how we do it. I think that's necessary. You've got to, because if you don't get that right, then this will fall apart. And so that's the Big Cabal way.
Tomiwa, thank you so much for demystifying the publishing and media business.
Thank you. I hope it's been valuable.
Hopefully so. I hope people do take the time to actually understand how TechCabal and Zikoko actually work as business entities as well and understand how to engage with you as well. So thank you so much for joining me on the Wimbart Way.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a fascinating journey speaking to some of the continent's most impressive, compelling storytellers, commentators, thought leaders. I cannot thank all of them enough for taking their time out from their busy lives to discuss comms, PR, communications for African tech. I hope you've enjoyed it too. Here's to the next season.